killer. It's so good.
Detectives walked into a horror movie come to life the other night, guys.
Horrific details tonight of a suspected grave robber. Police say 34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach's home was filled with skeletons and other items stolen from cemeteries. The Delaware County District Attorney's Office says he broke into mausoleums and grave sites multiple times at Mount Moriah Cemetery in Yeadon since Halloween.
26 separate mausoleums and or underground burial sites had been torn into and, for lack of a better word, desecrated.
He was arrested January 6th at the cemetery. Police say he had a bag stuffed with human remains of children and skulls and had more bones in his vehicle. But that was the tip of the iceberg. When investigators executed a search warrant on his home in Ephrata, Lancaster County, they found well over 100 skeletons.
Understand, some of these are 200 years old, some of them obviously much newer. There's one that had a pacemaker still attached to the body.
Police believe the remains were taken from cemeteries throughout the region. They also confirmed this Facebook page is part of the investigation, titled Human Bones and Skull Selling Group. Gerlach is tagged on the page. This is one of his pictures captioned, riding a Harley and slinging skulls. But police don't know if any were sold or why he wanted them.
They were in various states. Some of them were hanging, as it were. Some of them were pieced together. Some were just skulls on a shelf.
Yeadon Police Chief says this is one of the most disturbing cases he's ever seen.
Rest in peace is rest in peace. And this is definitely something that tears at your heartstrings.
Officials have called this a, quote, horror movie come to life. Court documents state that the home behind me is where Jonathan Gerlach brought human remains that were stolen from cemeteries. While neighbors say the house sits unoccupied tonight, the smell of dead bodies just barely lingers. You can see the houses here are crowded together, but somehow neighbors tell me they had no idea something sinister was happening behind closed doors.
I'm getting goosebumps now, actually, just thinking about it.
You know, you don't expect something to be happening right outside your door like that.
Neighbors on Washington Avenue say they've seen suspect Jonathan Gerlach and a woman walking a dog together around the neighborhood.
I'm like, hey, can I pet your dog? Then we started talking about animals and, you know, just like small, like friendly, you know, conversation.
Ephrata police officers have been here for hours. You can see just one of their cars sitting at the back of this home right here. We also know from the Lancaster County DA that she's received some information. Gerlach may have spent time at a local cemetery, but nothing was found to have been missing at this time. Gerlach is facing 26 counts of burglary and criminal trespassing, in addition to abuse of a corpse and desecration and theft or sale of venerated objects. We do know, of course, this is an ongoing investigation.
The horror movie come to life. That's how detectives describe this Lancaster County home. And just today, authorities removed some disturbing discoveries. A man named Jonathan Gerlach is being charged after more than 100 stolen skeletons were found here. We have team coverage on this story today with CBS 21's Lily Sexton piecing through the search warrant and Maxine Rose speaking to a former friend who was shedding light on the suspect's past. It's 5:30. I'm Alex Thill. And we're now learning Gerlach was allegedly selling some of those human remains. So let's get right into it. Lily, what evidence did police have against him before this arrest?
They had been collecting evidence against him for a while now. They were able to get physical DNA evidence from the scene of where the graves were robbed. They also were able to collect information from his social media where he's being tagged in people speaking about buying and selling these human remains from him. They also said that Lancaster police got a tip. This was all explained in the search warrant. They received a tip from someone that remained anonymous saying that a family friend that she heard through the grapevine that there is a hanging human corpse in his basement, and that did end up being true after they were able to execute this search warrant.
Wow, and Maxine, speaking of those friends, I know you were able to talk to someone who says they knew Gerlach. Does his friend say he was like this before all of this happened, or that there was any indication something like this would happen?
Yeah, so just to be clear too, I mean, this friend was not mentioned at all in the search warrant, although I do know that there were some names in that search warrant. We reached out to those people and did not hear back. But as for this former friend, he says that there was no indication that he had even any interest in oddities or collecting these sorts of things, at least to this extent, right? He explains that he was kind of into this kind of scene, but never, again, really showed interest in doing something like this.
And Maxine, how does that friend feel now, knowing what's coming out about him?
I did ask him that question. You know, he speaks really highly of him, at least when he was friends with him years ago. He said that he just, you know, good people can do bad things, and that really stuck with me because it's interesting. You know, I think everybody is trying to just wrap their heads around the situation, and knowing him at an earlier stage when maybe they were closer with him or got along with him, it's just interesting to see the way things have in a way changed now, but you know, they're still trying to see the good in him.
Absolutely. I want to bring it back to Lily really quick. Lily, how long did this investigation last? When did it start? Do you know those answers?
It first started early November. That's when he's accused of robbing the gravesite for the first time. And since then, he has returned multiple times, or he's accused of returning multiple times to rob even more graves at this historic cemetery, each time leaving behind tools and sometimes leaving behind DNA evidence. So police have been collecting evidence and building a case against him for a matter of months now, since early November.
Wow, interesting stuff there, Lily. And I just quickly want to go back to Maxine before we move on. Have you also been able to parse through his social media pages, Jonathan Gerlach's? What do we know there?
Yeah, so in that search warrant that Lily is talking about there are a few accounts that are mentioned, Facebook, Instagram accounts. So we know that he had some personal accounts there, but we also know that there is another account people have sent to us that allegedly belonged to him that had multiple pictures of skulls and bones on it that he seemed to have been either buying or selling, something of that sort. So we'll talk a little bit more about Trevor, the friend's reaction to all of that next at 6.
Like social media goes, it seemed like he kept it pretty minimal.
His Instagram page confirmed by documents for a search warrant. It says, quote, "The 533 accounts and pages Gerlach is following revealed an abundance of accounts referencing skeleton collections, corpses, taxidermy, human skull store, oddities, and bone museums. But another alleged Instagram page of his shows more."
I think it was just kind of, it blended in. I guess my overall take generally is I never, ever would have expected him to do something like this.
Today, we are hearing from loved ones who had family members buried in a cemetery at the center of a disturbing crime that played out in Delaware County. Police have charged a man with stealing human remains from grave sites and then selling them online. Action News reporter Amanda Pitts live for us in Gaydon with the latest on what we're learning about this investigation. Amanda.
Yeah, great. Police tell us they are going through the painstaking process right now of notifying families whose loved ones' remains were stolen by this man. Police say he left behind a trail of cigarettes and energy drinks here at the scene, and it was in this very spot a few nights ago where he was arrested. He admitted to police that he stole bodies and was selling them online.
It's a lot of questions, and I don't know who to turn to.
People with loved ones buried at Mount Moriah Cemetery in Gaydon are worried sick that their ancestors were among the remains allegedly stolen by this man, 34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach, who's now facing a whopping 500 charges.
It's the last thing we could do for people is to honor their wishes and to disturb them. I just can't understand why somebody would do that.
Police say Gerlach forced open more than 24 mausoleums and underground burial vaults, stealing the human remains inside. Some of those family burials included famous artists and war heroes who lived in the 1800s. Their investigation led police to his Lancaster County home, where more than 100 human skulls, long bones, and mummified human feet and hands were discovered.
My great-grandparents are buried here.
Christy Cole came to the cemetery after hearing the news to check on her loved ones.
Of course, course, there's anger and sadness. Nobody should be treated this way after life.
Police were called to the cemetery in November and December for reported burglaries. They found mausoleums destroyed, caskets left empty. Evidence of that remains here today. Investigators found a post in the Human Bones and Skull Selling group where a man thanked Gerlach for mailing him a possible teen and a baboon and a monkey. His Facebook photo says riding a Harley and slinging skulls, while his Instagram shows countless skeletons. His last post, skulls and bones available.
Frightening, absolutely frightening, because I can't imagine the type of people and what they would want to use it for.
Police tied him to the scene through his vehicle and phone records and nabbed Gerlach at the cemetery the night of January 6th. He allegedly admitted to the crime. Police are now working to notify living relatives, a long and difficult process.
The records are so old that, you know, if it was the 1800s, we have to go through the records, and the records were done in a book, and, you know, we have to figure that out.
Now, police also found multiple corpses in a storage unit registered under his name. At this hour, police are still at his home in Lancaster County as this investigation remains active and ongoing. If you have any loved ones buried in the cemetery, Yadin police want to hear from you.
More information tonight about the man accused of stealing more than 100 human skeletal remains from a graveyard in Delaware County. Today, investigators were back at the home of 34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach searching for more evidence. Detectives say they were able to track him down because he left a trail of energy drinks and cigarettes in the graveyard. Action News reporter John Paul covering the story live for us now in Swarthmore with the very latest. John, you had a chance to speak to a family that's been impacted by all of this.
That's right. In fact, the family still lives here on one of the homesteads left to them by a family member who was buried at Mount Moriah Cemetery more than 100 years ago. Now listen, police have been asking anyone who has family members buried in these mausoleums to come forward. They're trying to figure out if they can track down these families. Well, Action News was able to do just that. We found the family whose great-great-grandfather's bones may have been stolen. Among the 26 mausoleums a suspected grave robber broke into at Mount Moriah Cemetery is this one, erected in 1912. The name above the door is Jonathan Pritchard.
I thought to myself, I wonder if that's the same cemetery.
This is Jonathan Pritchard IV. We tracked him down today. He saw our story tonight and had no clue that his great-great-grandfather's bones could have been stolen.
I think when you're dead, you're dead. And so he don't know anybody got his bones, but I'm not happy about it. I mean, that's twisted. How would he feel if I went and dug his mother up or something?
Pritchard still lives on the site of one of the original family homesteads in Swarthmore, but doesn't know too much about the man who was born in 1827.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know that much. I know he built a church in the city of Philadelphia. We could have went to college on his dime if we promised to be ministers. 5 of the 9 crypts inside were damaged, the remains stolen. They could be among the more than 100 sets of skeletal remains found in the basement of Jonathan Gerlach's home in Ephrata, Lancaster County. Several notable Philadelphians are buried in the Yadin Cemetery, including John McCullough, a Philadelphia Shakespearean actor who became famous in the mid-1800s and performed at the Walnut Street Theater. His family's burial vault still shows signs of damage today. This afternoon, investigators were back at Gerlach's home, removing more bodies. We learned that Gerlach may have been trying to sell the skeletons. Posts on his Facebook and Instagram page show some of the skulls and bones saying they're available, DM me. Police discovered the remains after arresting Gerlach at the cemetery January 6th. They were doing surveillance on the site in Yadin because of the break-ins. They believe Pritchard's mausoleum was one of his targets. He obviously spent a lot of money on that mausoleum and put his bones in there and wanted to be left alone, and he's not.
Now, Rick, Shari, Jonathan Pritchard IV has a son, Jonathan Pritchard V, who interestingly has been donating to the Friends of Mount Moriah Cemetery so they could take care of that cemetery and the family mausoleum.
Last year, at one point, walking my son to school, walking by, and if you look at the garage, the blinds were down, and there was tons of flies, like, on the window, and I was like, oh, that's a bit odd, you know, but you can't say anything to someone, hey, there's a ton of flies, but I thought maybe, it's a garage, there's stink in there, but now it makes sense if there was finding all those bones and stuff in there. It makes sense.
So in your recollection, you recall a time walking past the garage and seeing flies at the garage windows.
Yeah, it was more than 5. It was at least 20, 30 on each window. But, I figured it was a garage that they were getting in through somewhere and they couldn't get out, and now finding out that there was all those remains in there, it makes sense.
And I was going to say, you see, from your recollection, you're seeing this, and you said that the blinds on those garage windows were always drawn shut there?
Every time I drove by or walked by, they were always down.
They found Facebook posts that included people thanking him for the human skin bag that they purchased from him, as well as they also described all of the items that they found, in like hundreds of skulls, in addition to 2 torsos that he's accused of stealing from that cemetery.
And Lily, you mentioned that some of them were sold, but some of them weren't. Do you know more about that? How specifically those were sold, if they were sold online, or how that happened?
They have evidence with his Cash App that he was using his Cash App most likely for the sales and purchases of the body parts. We don't know exactly how much he sold online, but we do, according to the documents at least, think that he wasn't just robbing the graves and keeping everything. He was also turning it into a business and selling some of the items.
Witnesses had told me they had seen investigators initially just come right in and start taking boxes out. You could see in one of those frames there, they kind of hid it with that white sheet, but we did get a second. There it is, a few boxes stacked right up. And from our understanding, they're continuing to take evidence out of that home.
And from your understanding, I'm not sure if you know this, where is Jonathan Gerlach now? Do we know?
Well, he does have $1 million bond, I do believe. So he is currently in, I believe, the Lancaster County prison. Either way, he is not out and about at this point. Witnesses, neighbors here tell me they saw him get escorted out earlier this week of this home here. We are also under the impression that he was living with someone else. We have not seen that person. We have not heard from that person. We have not seen whether there are even any charges against this person. But of course, there's so much more to this story, Alex, that we are not, privy to just yet. And hopefully, as this develops, we'll be able to learn more.
New details in that gruesome case where a man was arrested and charged with burglarizing graves and storing remains in his home and storage unit. Chris O'Connell, you've been following this story since it broke. What are police saying?
Well, Jason, police think that Jonathan Gerlach was selling at least some of those human remains online. Investigators say he had collected a trove of human skulls, skeletons, and bones, including full corpses hanging from his basement ceiling.
I never thought I would see this in my life. It was an experience that you really don't want to relive.
The Yale police chief says he's seen a lot in his career, but nothing like what he saw when he walked into the home of accused grave robber Jonathan Gerlach. He was one of the first inside of Gerlach's Ephrata home when they discovered more than 100 human remains of people who have died decades, even centuries ago. Investigators and medical examiners were back at the property today. They say 8 more bodies were found at a nearby storage locker.
They were basically on display. There was some stuff in boxes, but most of the stuff was on display.
According to newly released affidavits, police say Gerlach used crowbars and screwdrivers to break into dozens of mausoleums and underground burial vaults on both the Yeadon and Philadelphia sides of the historic Mount Moriah Cemetery. You can actually see where some of the stones were moved and vaults burglarized. 2 corpses stolen from this grave, 7 sets of remains stolen from this family plot. All of the remains were from those who died many years ago, but some as young as infants. descendants of family members buried here are sickened.
It's yucky. I mean, anybody finding out, we think that, you know, we're going to rest in peace and be okay there. And I mean, it's their landing space of their body, not their soul. So there's peace in that.
Neighbors at Gerlach's Ephrata home started to get suspicious when they started noticing flies around the window.
It was more than 5, it was at least 20, 30 on each window. I figured it was a garage that they were getting in through somewhere and they couldn't get out, and now finding out that there was all those remains in there, it makes sense.
Investigators are trying to figure out if other cemeteries were hit. In December, a tip came into police about a grave robber in Luzerne County. A tipster told police they recently discovered a partially decomposed corpse hanging from Gerlach's basement. They also say he disappeared for a few days and mentioned that he had been in Chicago selling a human skull. Police are looking into a Facebook page devoted to selling human remains. Investigators wonder how long it's been going on or what else they may find.
What could this evolve to next? You know, you're collecting human remains. What's the next step in the evolution of this? And that's something that, you know, hopefully we will find out why.
Now, Gerlach remains in the Delaware County Jail on $1 million cash bail. Investigators are now trying to connect loved ones with their family members' remains, but since all of them died many, many years ago, Dawn, they understand it is going to be a challenge.
Foolish crime in Pennsylvania after 100 skulls and mummified body parts are discovered in a grave robbery case. Jonathan Gerlach was arrested Tuesday night, culminating a months-long investigation into break-ins at Mount Verizon Cemetery. Police closed in on the suspect after seeing bones and skulls in the backseat in Pennsylvania. They later searched his home and storage unit, uncovering more human remains. Police are also looking into whether the 34-year-old was selling remains on Facebook.
This is an unbelievable scene that no one involved, from myself to the detectives to the medical examiners that are now trying to piece together what they are looking at, quite literally. None of them have ever seen anything like this before. We don't know exactly what he was doing with them. Time will tell. They were in various states. Understand, some of these are 200 years old. Some of them obviously much newer. There's one that had a pacemaker still attached to the bodies.
Back to what I do. Catfish, Billy, baby, hello, how are you? Yo, by 9 numbers like a power line. Tell it to a swimming pool. I think I got the whole crew. Ooh, let me know what y'all wanna do. I bought a 30-pack of Creek water, baby boo. Not a 99, not a 99.99, not mine. I got 100 proof.
They're gonna be sorry they were ever born. Who? All of them.
Trace it if the case of profits flawless. My eyes on the wheel, know that they targets.